Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty, watching the stars through the main view screen. The ship was on a normal patrol mission near the edge of human space. It was just another quiet day in the year 2387. The crew was doing their usual work, checking systems and monitoring space traffic. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Parker sat at her station, watching the tactical display. She was the ship's weapons officer and had been serving with Captain Morrison for 3 years. The sensors showed nothing unusual in the area, just empty space and distant stars. "Captain," Parker called out suddenly, "I'm picking up something." On long-range sensors, Morrison walked over to her station. "What do you have?" "Multiple contacts, sir. Big ones. They're coming this way fast." Chief Engineer Tony Rodriguez looked up from his console. "I'm reading massive energy signatures. Whatever they are, they're packing serious firepower." The bridge crew became more alert. Communications Officer Amy Chun started scanning all frequencies for any incoming messages. Navigator Helen Brooks began calculating possible escape routes, just in case. "How many ships?" Morrison asked. "At least 50, sir. Maybe more." "They're in formation." Morrison nodded. "Put it on screen." The view screen changed to show the approaching fleet. The ships were unlike anything in human design. They were long and curved, with strange metal that seemed to shift colors. Energy weapons glowed along their hulls. The formation was perfect, showing military discipline. "That's the biggest alien fleet I've ever seen," said Commander Rick Sullivan, the first officer. He moved to stand beside Morrison. "Sir, they're hailing us," Chun reported, "on screen." The view screen filled with the image of an alien commander. The creature was tall and thin, with blue skin and forearms. Its eyes were large and dark. It wore elaborate armor covered in symbols and medals. "I am Supreme Admiral Vex Thara of the Zephyrian Armada," the alien announced. Its voice was deep and commanding. "You will identify yourselves immediately." Morrison stepped forward. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the Terran Navy ship USS Liberty. We're on a routine patrol." The alien admiral laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "Terran Navy? How amusing. You humans and your pathetic attempts at military organization." Morrison kept his face calm, but several crew members exchanged looks. Lieutenant Bobby Torres at the helm raised an eyebrow. Dr. Kate Wilson at the science station shook her head slightly. "We come in peace," Morrison said. "We have no quarrel with your people." "Peace?" Exthara sneered. "There is no peace in space. Human, there is only strength and weakness. The strong rule. The weak serve or die." The alien admiral gestured with 2 of his arms. "Observe the might of the Zephyrian Empire. See what real military power looks like." The alien fleet began to move into different formations. Their ships were massive, each one 3 times the size of the Liberty. Energy weapons started charging up, creating bright flashes of light across their hulls. "Behold our quantum devastator cannons," Vexthara announced proudly. "These weapons can crack planets in half. We have destroyed entire star systems with this technology." The alien ships demonstrated their weapons by firing at nearby asteroids. The rocks exploded in brilliant flashes of light. The display was impressive and clearly meant to intimidate. "Our shields can withstand the fury of dying stars," the admiral continued. "Your primitive energy weapons cannot even scratch our hull plating." More demonstrations followed. The alien ships performed complex maneuvers, moving in perfect synchronization. They created energy barriers between their vessels. Some ships even seemed to phase in and out of visibility. Chief Petty Officer Ganny Kim watched from his station. "They're showing off pretty hard," he whispered to the officer next to him. Morrison maintained his diplomatic expression, but inside he was starting to feel amused. The alien commander was clearly trying to scare them with these displays. Your pathetic metal vessels are nothing before the might of the Zephyrian Empire, Vexthara declared. We have conquered 47 star systems. We have enslaved dozens of inferior species. Your human civilization will be next. The alien admiral paused for dramatic effect. We offer you one chance to surrender. Bow before the Zephyrian Empire, and your deaths will be quick. Morrison looked around his bridge. His crew was watching him calmly. They had served together for years and trusted each other completely. He could see that they were not afraid. In fact, some of them looked like they were trying not to laugh. That's quite a display, Admiral, Morrison said politely. Your technology is very impressive. Of course it is, Vexthara replied arrogantly. We are the most advanced military force in this galaxy sector. No species has ever stood against us and survived. Morrison nodded thoughtfully. I'm curious about something. How long did it take your civilization to develop faster than light travel? The alien admiral seemed surprised by the question. What does that matter? I'm just interested in comparing. Technological development, Morrison explained. As a fellow spacefaring species, Vexthara straightened up proudly. Our greatest scientists achieved this milestone in merely 3,000 years of dedicated research. No species has ever mastered space-time manipulation faster. Morrison could hear someone on his bridge, trying not to laugh. He glanced back and saw Torres, covering his mouth with his hand. Even the usually serious Dr. Wilson was smiling. 3,000 years, Morrison repeated. That is quite an achievement. He turned to Wilson. Doctor, how long did it take humanity to go from first powered flight to faster-than-light travel? Wilson checked her console and answered clearly. Approximately 237 years, sir. The silence from the alien fleet was complete. Even the background hum of their engines seemed to quiet down. Vexthara's forearms moved nervously. That cannot be correct. Your primitive mathematics must be wrong. I can show you our historical records if you'd like, Morrison offered helpfully. The alien admiral's confident expression was starting to crack. No species could advance so rapidly. It is impossible. Morrison looked at his crew again. They were all watching with interest now. The fear and intimidation that the aliens had tried to create was completely gone. Would you like a demonstration of our capabilities? Morrison asked casually. The question hung in the air between the two fleets. The massive alien armada that had seemed so threatening moments before now looked less impressive. The single human ship sat calmly in space, waiting for an answer. Vexthara's eyes narrowed. You dare challenge the might of the Zephyrian Empire? I'm just offering to show you what human technology can do, Morrison replied with a slight smile. After all, you showed us yours. Captain Morrison looked at his bridge crew with calm confidence. The alien admiral's challenge hung in the air like a dare. Commander Sullivan moved closer to Morrison's chair, trying hard not to smile. The rest of the crew watched their captain with interest. Admiral Vexthara, Morrison said politely, I think there might be some confusion here. You seem to believe that humans are a primitive species. The alien commander's forearms crossed over his chest. Of course you are primitive. We have studied your pathetic civilization. You only reached space a few centuries ago. Lieutenant Commander Parker turned her head slightly to hide her grin. Chief Engineer Rodriguez made a small coughing sound that might have been a laugh. Even the usually serious Dr. Wilson was shaking her head with amusement. That's true, Morrison agreed. We are relatively new to space travel, but sometimes being new means being innovative. Vexthara's large dark eyes narrowed. Innovation cannot overcome thousands of years of superior development. Our technology is proven in countless battles. I'm sure it is, Morrison said respectfully. But may I ask you something else? How long did it take your people to develop artificial intelligence? The alien admiral looked confused by the question. Artificial intelligence? We have computer systems, of course. They took approximately 2,000 years to perfect. Communications Officer Chun bit her lip to keep from laughing. Navigator Brooks looked down at her console to hide her expression. The entire bridge crew was struggling to maintain their composure. 2,000 years, Morrison repeated thoughtfully. That's impressive dedication. He turned to his science officer. Dr. Wilson, when did humans first create artificial intelligence? Approximately 80 years after we invented. The first electronic computers, sir, Wilson replied clearly. Total development time was less than 100 years. The silence from the alien fleet was even deeper this time. Some of the Zephyrian ships had stopped their formation flying and were just floating in space. That is impossible, Vexthara said, but his voice sounded less certain now. No species could develop thinking machines so quickly. We could show you our AI systems, Morrison offered. Ship, please introduce yourself to our guests. A calm female voice filled the bridge and was transmitted to the alien fleet. Hello, Admiral Vexthara. I am Liberty, the artificial intelligence of this vessel. I have been fully operational for 12 years. I manage all ship systems and assist the crew with tactical and strategic decisions. The alien admiral's blue skin seemed to turn a lighter shade. Your ship has a thinking machine inside it? Of course, Morrison said casually. All human ships have AI systems. They help us operate more efficiently. Liberty manages over 10,000 different systems simultaneously. 10,000? Vexthara's voice cracked slightly. That's nothing, said Lieutenant Torres from the helm. The AI on our newest ships can handle 50,000 systems. Commander Sullivan finally spoke up. Admiral, may I ask how your ships are controlled? We have crews of 800 skilled operators, Vexthara said proudly, though he sounded less confident than before. Each ship requires constant attention from our finest minds. 800 crew members? Morrison asked with genuine surprise. For one ship? Yes, it takes many beings to operate our advanced technology. The human bridge crew exchanged glances. Chief Petty Officer Kim counted on his fingers and whispered to the officer next to him. We run this whole ship with 30 people? Morrison heard the whisper and smiled. Admiral, the Liberty has a crew of 28. That includes everyone, from the captain to the cook. 28? Vexthara's voice was getting higher. That cannot be sufficient for a military vessel. Our AI handles most of the routine operations, Morrison explained. The crew focuses on decision-making and creative problem-solving. Dr. Wilson looked up from her console. Captain, I have some interesting data about their fleet composition. Share it with our guests, Doctor. Wilson stood up and spoke clearly. Admiral, our sensors show that your 53 ships have a combined crew of approximately 42,000 beings. Is that correct? Our numbers are not your concern, Vexthara replied defensively. I'm not trying to be rude, Wilson continued. I'm just amazed by the difference in our approaches. Our entire Terran Navy operates with fewer people than you have on your current fleet. How many ships does your Navy have? The alien admiral asked suspiciously. Morrison paused for a moment. Liberty, what's the current count? As of this morning, Captain, the Terran Navy operates 12,437 vessels of various classes. The alien fleet actually seemed to drift backward slightly. Several of the Zephyrian ships powered down their weapon displays. 12,000 ships? Vexthara's voice was barely a whisper. That's just the Navy, Morrison added helpfully. That doesn't include our merchant marine, exploration services, or colonial defense forces. Engineer Rodriguez looked up from his station. Captain, Should we tell them about the construction rate? Why not? Morrison shrugged. Admiral, our shipyards currently produce about 200 new vessels per month. We're expanding our fleet. For a major exploration mission, 200 ships per month? Vexthara was now visibly shaking. The new ships are much more advanced than the Liberty, Morrison continued conversationally. Better weapons, stronger shields, faster engines. Technology improves so quickly these days. Chief Kim raised his hand slightly. Captain, what about? The automated defense platforms? Oh, right, those too. Admiral, we also have about 50,000 automated defense platforms scattered throughout human space. They're unmanned but fully intelligent. Each one is equivalent to a medium-sized warship. The alien commander slumped in his chair. His forearms hung limply at his sides. This cannot be real. Our intelligence reports said nothing about such capabilities. When was your last intelligence report on humanity? Morrison asked curiously. Approximately 50 of your years ago, Vexthara admitted weakly. Commander Sullivan laughed out loud. 50 years? Admiral, we've launched 3 major technology revolutions in the last 50 years. Our capabilities have increased by orders. Of magnitude? Orders of magnitude? The alien admiral looked confused. Exponentially, Dr. Wilson explained. Human technology doesn't just improve gradually. It improves rapidly, then improves even faster. Morrison stood up from his captain's chair. Admiral, I think there's been a misunderstanding here. You've been operating under outdated information about human capabilities. So you will not surrender? Vexthara asked hopefully. I'm afraid not, Morrison replied kindly. But I have a better idea. Instead of fighting, why don't we show you what modern human technology can actually do? It might help you update your intelligence files. You would demonstrate your weapons against us? The alien admiral's eyes went wide with fear. No, Morrison said quickly. I meant a friendly demonstration. We wouldn't want to harm anyone. We're not a violent species, unless we have to be. You are not violent? Vexthara seemed confused by this concept. We prefer diplomacy and trade, Morrison explained. Fighting is expensive and wasteful. We'd rather make friends. The alien admiral looked at his fleet, then back at the single human ship. His proud armada suddenly seemed very small and outdated. What kind of demonstration? He asked quietly. Captain Morrison smiled at the alien admiral's nervous question. We'll show you some basic human technology. Nothing too advanced. We don't want to overwhelm you. Admiral Vexthara's 4 arms fidgeted with his armor. Basic technology? Yes. Just everyday systems that we use on patrol ships like this one, Morrison replied casually. Lieutenant Commander Parker, would you mind demonstrating our defensive systems? Parker nodded and turned to her console. Powering up defensive grid, Captain. The view screen showed the USS Liberty from the alien fleet's perspective. Suddenly, a human ship began to shimmer and fade. It became translucent, like a ghost ship floating in space. What is happening? Vexthara demanded, his voice rising in panic. We're phasing partially out of normal space-time, Morrison explained calmly. This makes conventional weapons ineffective against us. Energy beams pass right through the ship. One of the alien vessels fired a test shot at the Liberty. The bright energy beam went through the human ship as if it wasn't there. The Liberty remained undamaged and continued to shimmer in and out of visibility. Impossible, Vexthara whispered. How can you exist in 2 dimensions at once? Oh, this is just basic dimensional manipulation, Morrison said. We learned this from studying quantum mechanics. Your quantum devastator cannons are impressive, but they only work in normal space. Dr. Wilson looked up from her console. Captain, should I explain the physics? Please do, Doctor. Wilson stood up and spoke clearly. Admiral, Your weapons operate by manipulating matter and energy in standard spacetime. Our defensive systems shift us into quantum superposition. We exist in multiple probability states simultaneously. Multiple probability states? Vexthara. Blue Skin was now very pale. Think of it like this, Wilson continued. Your weapons are trying to hit a target that is everywhere and nowhere at the same time. The mathematics are quite elegant. Chief Engineer Rodriguez grinned from his station. Want to see our offensive capabilities next? Morrison nodded. Go ahead, Tony. Find us a nice asteroid to demonstrate on. Rodriguez scanned the area. There's a good-sized rock about 10 kilometers away, perfect for testing. What are you going to do? Vexthara asked nervously. Just a simple gravitational manipulation, Morrison replied. Nothing fancy. The Liberty's weapons systems activated. Instead of energy beams or projectiles, the ship created a focused gravitational field around the distant asteroid. The alien. Fleet watched in amazement as the rock began to compress. We're increasing the local gravitational constant, Morrison explained. This forces the asteroid's matter to collapse in on itself. The asteroid compressed smaller and smaller until it became a tiny point of incredible density. For a moment, it actually became a miniature black hole. Then, in a flash of exotic radiation, it evaporated completely. You destroyed it with gravity? Vexthara's voice was barely audible. Not destroyed, Dr. Wilson corrected. Converted. We turned its mass into pure energy through controlled gravitational collapse. The energy was then released as Hawking radiation. Commander Sullivan chuckled. We learned that technique from studying natural black holes. Very clean and efficient. Your weapons can create black holes? The alien admiral was now gripping his command chair with all 4 arms. Small ones, Morrison said modestly. Big ones are too dangerous to use near populated areas. We save those for special occasions. Lieutenant Torres called out from the helm. Captain, should I show them our propulsion system? Good idea, Bobby. Admiral, you might want to watch this. Carefully. The Liberty began to move, but not in any way the aliens had ever seen. The ship performed a series of impossible maneuvers. It moved sideways without turning. It accelerated in multiple directions at once. Most shocking of all, it briefly appeared to be in 3 different locations simultaneously. How can you exist in multiple places? Vexthara asked weakly. Quantum superposition again, Morrison explained. We can spread our probability wave across several positions. Very useful for tactical situations. Navigator Brooks looked up from her console. Captain, want to show them the really cool trick. Which one? The wormhole generator. Morrison considered this. Well, why not? Admiral, this next demonstration might be a bit unusual. The Liberty's engines began to emit a strange humming sound. Space itself seemed to bend and twist around. The ship, suddenly, a tunnel of light opened in front of them. This is a stable wormhole, Morrison announced. It connects our current position to any point in space we choose. The human ship entered the wormhole and vanished. A moment later, it reappeared on the opposite side of the alien fleet formation. We just traveled 15,000 kilometers. In 0 time, Morrison said cheerfully. The wormhole folded spacetime to create a shortcut. Several of the alien ships were now backing away from the human vessel. Their perfect formation had completely broken down. Some of the smaller ships were actually turning to flee. This cannot be real, Vexthara said desperately. Our scientists say such technology is impossible. Your scientists are probably very smart, Morrison replied kindly. But they're working with limited information. Humans have access to some unique research. Chief Kim raised his hand. Captain, should we mention the time dilation field? Let's not overwhelm them, Morrison said with a laugh. I think they've seen enough for now. The alien admiral's confidence had completely collapsed. His proud armada looked like ancient sailing ships facing a modern warship. "What are you going to do to us?" "Nothing," Morrison said simply. "We're peaceful people. We have no reason to harm you." "But we threatened you. We tried to make you surrender." "That's just a misunderstanding," Morrison replied. "You didn't know what you were dealing with. No harm done." Commander Sullivan stepped forward. "Admiral, can I ask you something? Why did you decide to threaten us in the first place?" Vexthara's shoulders slumped. "We thought you were weak. Our intelligence said humans were primitive. We believed we could easily conquer your space. And now?" Morrison asked gently. "Now I see that we are the primitive ones," the alien admiral admitted. "Your single ship could destroy our entire fleet." "We could," Morrison agreed. "But we won't. That's not who we are." Dr. Wilson looked up from her console. "Captain, I'm detecting several more alien fleets in nearby systems. They seem to be monitoring our conversation." "Really? How many?" "At least 12 different species. They're all watching to see what happens." Morrison nodded thoughtfully. "Admiral, it seems like this encounter is being observed by many of your neighbors." "Yes," Vexthara said quietly. "The Zephyrian Empire has made many enemies. They are probably hoping to see us destroyed." "Well, that's not going to happen," Morrison said firmly. "Instead, how about we discuss a better solution? Maybe we can work together instead of fighting." The alien admiral looked up with surprise. "You would work with us after we threatened you?" "Everyone makes mistakes," Morrison replied. "The important thing is learning from them. Are you willing to learn?" Vexthara straightened up slightly. "Yes, Captain Morrison. We are willing to learn." Captain Morrison watched as Admiral Vexthara tried to regain his composure. The alien commander's forearms were shaking slightly, and his proud military bearing had completely disappeared. The once impressive Zephyrian fleet floated in disarray. Around them, "Admiral," Morrison said gently, "I think we need to have an honest conversation about what happens next." Vexthara nodded slowly. "We understand that we have made a terrible mistake. The Zephyrian Empire has gravely underestimated humanity." "That's true," Morrison agreed. "But the real question is what you're going to do with this new information." Dr. Wilson looked up from her console. "Captain, I'm still detecting those other fleets watching us. They're maintaining distance, but monitoring all our communications." "How? Many species are listening in now?" Morrison asked. 15 different fleets from 12 species, Wilson replied. "Word is spreading fast through this sector." Commander Sullivan moved closer to Morrison's chair. "This could be a problem, Captain. If everyone knows about our capabilities now, it might change the balance of power in this region." Morrison considered this. "Maybe that's not a bad thing." "Admiral Vexthara, how many other species has your empire threatened recently?" The alien commander looked uncomfortable. "We have been expanding our territory. Several worlds have been absorbed into our empire in the past year." "Absorbed?" Morrison's voice became cooler. "You mean conquered?" "Yes," Vexthara admitted quietly. "We believed that military strength gave us the right to rule over weaker species." Lieutenant Commander Parker turned in her chair. "Captain, I'm reading some interesting data about those other fleets. Several of them are from species that the Zephyrians have recently conquered." "Really?" Morrison looked back at Vexthara. "So some of your former victims are watching this conversation?" "It would seem so," the alien admiral said with obvious embarrassment. Chief Engineer Rodriguez called out from his station. "Captain, we're receiving a message from one of the other fleets. They're asking if we need assistance." Morrison almost smiled. "Tell them we appreciate the offer, but we have the situation under control." "Already done, sir," Rodriguez replied. Communications Officer Chun looked up from her console. Sir, we're getting more messages. Several species want to know if we're available for diplomatic talks. And 3 different civilizations are asking about trade agreements, added Navigator Brooks. Morrison turned back to the alien admiral. Admiral, it seems like your little demonstration has had some unexpected consequences. Half the galaxy now knows that humans are more advanced than they thought. Vexthara's blue skin had turned even paler. What will you do to us? I told you already. Nothing, Morrison said firmly. We're not interested in conquest or revenge, but we are interested in justice. Justice? The alien commander looked confused. You said you've conquered several worlds recently. What about the people living on those worlds? They serve the Empire now, Vexthara said uncomfortably. As slaves? Morrison's voice was sharp. As citizens of a superior civilization, Vexthara replied, but his voice lacked conviction that Dr. Wilson spoke up from her station. Captain, I'm detecting distress signals from several systems that appear to be under Zephyrian control. The signals are coming from the conquered species. Morrison's expression hardened. Admiral, are these people asking for help? They are adjusting to their new situation, Vexthara said defensively. That's not what I asked, Morrison replied coldly. Are they asking for help? The alien admiral's forearms drooped. Some of them may be resistant to change. Resistant to slavery, you mean? Commander Sullivan said bluntly. Lieutenant Torres looked up from his console. Captain, we're receiving a priority message from Terran Command. They want to know our situation. Tell them we're conducting first contact. Negotiations, Morrison replied. And ask them to patch me through to Admiral Hayes. Yes, sir. A few moments later, a new voice came through the ship's communication system. Captain Morrison, this is Admiral Hayes. What's your situation? We've encountered a large alien fleet that was attempting to intimidate us into surrender, Morrison reported. They seem to have been conquering other species in this sector. Conquering other species? Admiral Hayes' voice became serious. That's a problem. Yes, sir. We've also discovered that our encounter is being monitored by multiple alien civilizations. Word about human capabilities is spreading rapidly. Understood. Captain, you have authorization to negotiate on behalf of the Terran government. Do whatever you think is best for the situation. Thank you, sir. Morrison turned back to Admiral Vexthara. Admiral, here's what's going to happen. You're going to return to your empire and tell them exactly what you've learned today. Of course, Vexthara said quickly. You're also going to release all the worlds you've conquered in the past 5 years, Morrison continued. Release them? The alien admiral looked shocked. But they are part of our empire now. Not anymore, Morrison said firmly. Those people have the right to govern themselves. And if we refuse? Morrison's expression didn't change. Then we'll discuss the matter further. But I don't think you want to do that. Vexthara looked at his fleet, then back at the single human ship that had completely outclassed them. No, we do not want to discuss it further. Good, Morrison said. You have 30 days to begin the liberation process. We'll be monitoring your progress. Chief Kim called out from his station. Captain, several of the watching fleets are requesting permission to approach. They want to thank us. Let them come, Morrison replied, but keep our weapons powered down. We want to be welcoming. Over the next hour, ships from 6 different species approached the Liberty. Each one represented a civilization that had been conquered or threatened by the Zephyrian Empire. Their gratitude was obvious and heartfelt. Captain Morrison, said the representative of the Kepler Coalition, our people have been praying for someone to stand up to the Zephyrians. You have given us hope. We're happy to help, Morrison replied, but you freed yourselves. We just provided a little encouragement. As the various alien ships departed, Admiral Vexthara made one final transmission. Captain Morrison, I want you to know that this encounter has changed everything for my people. We will not forget the lesson you have taught us. What lesson? Is that? Morrison asked. That true strength comes not from the ability to conquer, but from the wisdom to choose peace. Morrison nodded approvingly. That's a good lesson to remember. The Zephyrian fleet departed slowly, their formation much less impressive than when they had arrived. As they disappeared into hyperspace, Morrison turned to his crew. Well, that was interesting, Commander Sullivan said with a grin. Think they'll actually follow through? Parker asked. They will, Morrison said confidently. They're not stupid. They know what happens if they don't. Chief Rodriguez laughed. I still can't believe they thought they could intimidate us with 3,000-year-old technology. Different species develop at different rates, Dr. Wilson pointed out. We just happen to develop very quickly. Morrison settled back into his captain's chair. Set course for our next patrol sector. And Shun, send a full report to Terran Command. I have a feeling we're going to be getting a lot more diplomatic visitors soon. As the Liberty resumed its patrol, space around them was already changing. The word was spreading throughout the galaxy that humanity was not the primitive species that many had believed. The age of human isolation was ending, and the age of human leadership was about to begin.